Okay, so welcome everyone to the webinar. We're looking at what's new in the latest version of SolarWinds, so from version 11 onwards today. As I just mentioned, obviously the audience is muted today, so I'd still encourage you guys to ask any questions you can throughout. You can do so by leaving a note in the question box on your GoToWebinar panel on your screens. And what we'll do is we'll go through the presentation, we'll go through the demo, and we'll try and answer any questions we can at the end, and then we can show any examples we need to. So for those of you who have SolarWinds currently, obviously we're going to be looking at the latest additions, latest developments in the product. And for those of you who don't own any of SolarWinds at all or haven't seen it, we're going to be showing quite a variety of the different modules within the solution. So hopefully we're set up quite well for both camps there. We've got Martin Fairman on the call as well at the moment. He's one of our pre-sales technical consultants, and he's going to be doing the demonstration. But before I hand over to him, I'd just like to give a quick sort of 2-minute overview of basically what Open Reality does, who we are, and where we come from with regards to SolarWinds. So hopefully you should all be able to see my screen now with the Open Reality logo and background on it there. Okay, so just moving on 2 seconds. Okay, so we started out in '99 with Network Instruments, looking at their sort of packet analysis tools, subsequently moving into the retrospective network analysis space with them. And that was really looking at the application performance on the network, looking at the wire data. And what we found as we expanded was that a lot of our customers were kind of saying to us, well, that's great that you can troubleshoot and sort of be reactive to issues, but we want to be proactive now. We want to actually monitor ongoing. And that's where really SolarWinds came in and fitted pretty well into the first 2 tiers of monitoring that we cover. So looking at things like what's up, what's down, all the way through to application usage. We then branched out into the really sort of heavy-duty APM tools, looking at the sort of end-to-end view of the infrastructure with vendors like ExtraHop. So that was all well and good, but customers were then saying to us, well, you know, it's great that you can sort of see where an issue lies and what it might be, but how do we actually solve those issues? So naturally, we branched out into application optimization with Blue Coat, and subsequently Xinda as well. So looking at their sort of WAN acceleration solutions and bandwidth optimization for applications. We also dipped into the virtualization arena as well a number of years ago, and we're a Citrix partner, so that's all about application delivery and virtualization of desktops and servers. So one of the other things that came up during the early sort of monitoring days was network load testing. So one of the ways that we can actually sort of see where issues lie or what they might be is with Ixia's traffic generation tools. So, you know, customers were saying to us, well, we want to see how the network is actually coping with the traffic on it at the moment, so we can see whether an issue is the network, the application, or whatever it might be. And we found that Ixia's load generation tools actually lend themselves really well to Apposite's WAN emulation technology for pre-deployment testing. So that essentially gives you a sort of lab environment for testing before rollouts of applications, new systems, etc. We're the master distributor in the UK for Apposite, and also Ekahau Site Survey, which is in the sort of Wi-Fi design and testing space, and that continues to be one of our more popular products to date. We have a hand in security as well with Palo Alto Next-Gen Firewalls, and network and infrastructure. There's quite a number of vendors that we work with on that front. So the real question is, how can we add value to your projects and solutions? So there's a few points here, as you can see. These apply to really our full product set, but to be a bit more specific to SolarWinds today for you guys, in terms of solution design, we've got engineers here who can assist you with demos as we're doing today. We can also run through your requirements, help you scope those out, and then make sure we're aligning a suitable solution to them that's satisfactory. Following this, there's trials, support, evaluations available, and obviously we can take you through them. And when it comes to the implementation phases of the solution, There are a number of options with regards to professional services, so we can either sort of install and configure products for you, or just have a helping hand in that in terms of the installation and then making sure we're actually getting the right data into the solution, and then setting up anywhere from simple alerts to really complex alerting. So as you can see as well, there's a number of training options available. Those are on request, so obviously feel free to drop us questions through and I can send out any information that you guys need after the demo. And we operate a number of managed support services across a full product range as well. So that should give you guys a good, concise overview of what Open Reality does. Any questions on that at all, please let me know. But what I'll do now is I will hand over to Martin, and he's going to get cracking with the SolarWinds demonstration. Okay, Martin, we should be able to see your screen any second.
All right, good morning, everybody. Hopefully you can, you should be able to see my screen. If anybody can't, as normal, do let us know through the chat window. Yes, a quick introduction. Martin Fairman, pre-sales consultant. I'm what's known as SCP, SolarWinds Certified Professional Qualified. So I've been through the horrible exam on all of the SolarWinds products, and hopefully that means I'm going to know what I'm talking about today. Today I do want to just reiterate something. Again, you'll see the chat box in the GoToWebinar application. As we go through this, we're going to be covering quite a lot, and I understand that we've got a reasonably technical audience today, so we are going to go under the hood a little bit. So if you've got any questions, or if you want me to reiterate anything at all, do pop something into the chat box. And also we're going to have a sort of a semi-formal Q&A session towards the end as well. As I'm sure you've gathered already, at Open Reality we have full demonstration and GoToMeeting facilities. We run the products live on site. I think the cheesy term is we eat our own dog food, we use our own products. So if you actually wanted a specific overview or demonstration of the products, covering any particular questions or any particular monitoring requirements that you may have, then do please get in contact with Nick and myself, and we would be more than happy to oblige. Okay. So just a little bit of a sort of a reminder and an overview of the SolarWinds Orion products. Now, in the whole SolarWinds range, we have 29 products, and you'll be pleased to know that we're not going to go into every single one, but what we are going to concentrate on is the Orion suite of products. So one of the real positives and real capabilities of the SolarWinds suite has been the ability to share information across all platforms. And one of the things that we're actually going to show you running later is the new app stack capability, where that integration has become even tighter, where we're seeing all the layers of the application sandwich. But as a little reminder, the whole suite of products allows you to monitor anything in your environment, and this is a question we get quite a lot. What can you monitor? And it really is that simple. It's anything at all. If it's on your network, we'll monitor it. If it's off your network and we can get a hook into it, we will monitor it, and hopefully we'll be able to show you that in a little bit of detail shortly. So network performance monitoring, this is where we're monitoring the hardware, your switches, your routers, your firewalls, your servers, be them virtual or physical, in your network using SNMP, WMI, VMware APIs, any industry standard protocols that are out there at the moment. What we can also do is we can actually start to then do analysis, real deep overviews of exactly what's going on. So if the network performance monitoring side of the tools is telling us that an interface, your internet connection, your WAN connection, whatever that may be, is starting to run hot, starting to run at 90%, we can do analysis that can actually tell you what applications are using that particular port, what are taking up all that bandwidth. And we can then trace that back to endpoints. And then from a security point of view, if we want to actually take that down to a geographical location and even cross-reference against Active Directory to point a finger at a person and find out who could be causing a problem on a network, again, that is a standard capability within the SolarWinds Orion suite. Wide area network performance. In your Cisco environment, we can actually start to run packet traces across your layer 3 Cisco devices. What is happening in your WAN environment? What is happening in your style configuration, wide area network environment? And we can even cross-reference that information against voice over IP traffic that's in your Cisco and Avaya environment and find out where any particular bottlenecks, or more importantly, any potential bottlenecks, because we're looking at capacity planning and predictions as well, and that's something we'll be covering in more detail. IP address management, so we can have Cisco, Cisco ASA, Windows DHCP, even Linux bind. They're all methods of distributing IP addresses, and of course there's always that challenge in a static IP address environment. And using the SolarWinds Orion suite, we can manage all of those in a central single pane of glass, and you will hear the term single pane of glass being used quite a lot today, because we try and give a central area where management and monitoring can be carried out. Network configuration management. This is a real important part of network management that quite often gets overlooked, whereas it's all well and good having a switch, a router and a firewall on your network, and you can ping it, you can get an SNMP response back that tells you that memory and CPU is healthy. But what if the configuration is wrong? What if a port has been shut down? What if VLANs are configured incorrectly? What if information is going to the wrong syslog server? We can carry out policy checks on configurations of your devices, even basic things like checking the start and run configuration comparisons. We've all rebooted a device on our network and it starts running in a different manner. We've all been caught by that one in the past, and NCM can help protect against that. And then, of course, the important one, and the one we'll really be getting under the bonnet with shortly, is SAM, Server and Application Monitor, Application Performance Monitoring. Really getting down to the process, the user experience monitoring, the service view, the application response time view of what is happening in the applications in your environment. And again, we'll provide out-of-the-box monitoring for Exchange, for SQL, all your out-of-the-box applications, and even if you've got custom applications, we also have a solution for that as well. One thing I would like to touch on here is the scalability capability of the Orion products as well. So of course there is a limit that we will always get to with the SolarWinds Orion server with current compute, memory and operating system resources, and we can provide a scalability engine, an APE we call it, the additional polling engine, and these can provide enterprise and distributed monitoring of the whole of your enterprise, and effectively at the moment there is no limit to the type of monitoring that we're capable of putting in place. We also can put in what's known as a failover engine. So if there does become a problem with the SolarWinds Orion server, if you're in a disaster recovery environment, for example, the FOE, the failover engine, can take over automatically and can still handle your alerting, your notification, your syslog, your SNMP traps, all automatically. For those of you with an interest with a bit of MSP, or if you've got a particularly large environment, we have the EOC, the Enterprise Operations Console, which has the ability to manage up to 3 SolarWinds Orion instances, all through one single pane of glass again. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to dig into Network Performance Monitor, and we're going to, dropping all the way to the bottom there, we're going to look at what's new. That's the bit that everybody's excited about. But just a little bit of a reminder for those of you who haven't used Network Performance Monitor before. Simplifies detection, diagnosis and resolution of network outages before problems occur. So what we're doing here is we're digging into the nitty-gritty of the hardware in your environment here. So the example I tend to use here is if you've got a server or a switch or a router that's got multiple power supplies in a resilient mode, you can be notified if one of those power supplies has failed, so you can perform a hot swap before a problem actually occurs. Track response time, availability and uptime of routers, switches and other SNMP-enabled devices. This is the most important part of the product. We can support any SNMP device. So even if you've got something that's a little bit weird and wonderful, maybe even something that's been produced in-house, if it supports SNMP, we can monitor it, and that's a standard capability within NPM. You can cherry-pick the information you want from your devices and display it in the manner that you require. shows network performance statistics in real time via dynamic drillable network maps. This is one of the most popular parts of Network Performance Monitor. Within all the SolarWinds Orion packages, you have a tool called Network Atlas, and this can literally produce a map that gives a geographical representation of the whole of your enterprise, and you can nest maps within maps within maps, and eventually drill down literally to maybe a picture of a server room, and have nodes represented with a RAG status, a red, amber, green status, to highlight exactly what particular nodes may be in a particular challenge, or even if there's an area outage as well. That's a standard capability, that's not an add-on. Includes out-of-the-box dashboards, alerts, reports, and expert guidance on what to monitor and how. This is one of the most important parts of the Orion suite, where we work very, very closely with the major manufacturers such as Cisco, Juniper, HP, Dell, etc. And we're even development partners. And that gives us the ability to understand exactly what information is coming from these nodes, so that out-of-the-box screens will give you everything that you need without any horrible custom scripting. Automatic discovery through SNMP-enabled devices, and of course that very quick deployment. One of the first things that you will see once Network Performance Monitor has been installed is what's called the Network Sonar Discovery, where you enter the credentials of your environment, such as IP address ranges, SNMP, WMI, VMware credentials, and it will go and scan your environment and tell you what has been found. And of course you can schedule that. You could, for example, have that running every 4 hours. And if you're in a particularly dynamic environment where new equipment is constantly being deployed and you're using standard SNMP community strings, it will notify you that that equipment has been found and how would you like to monitor it. Okay, so what's new? So we're going to be looking at the analysis of user experience, wireless heat maps, which I know everyone's particularly excited about at the moment, and of course automated capacity planning. So talking about the user experience monitor, what is that? Now we'll actually show you this running in a moment, and we'll give you some example graphs. So what we're doing here is we are going to be using deep packet analysis, DPI. So those of you who've played with products such as Wireshark will be very, very aware of the level of detail that you can get at the packet level. And what the new SolarWinds NPM 11.5 is doing is it's using that information to tell you about response times of your applications. So we're literally reading the packet headers and seeing how long it is taking for an acknowledgement, a handshake, and we can then compare that against the actual network response time through ICMP, a ping of your nodes. And what that means is that we can then see, is it a hardware problem, is it a network problem, is it an application problem? So going under the hood a little bit, step one, we deploy a packet analysis sensor on a dedicated Windows device. Okay, so we've basically got a Windows server. In my environment here, I actually use a Windows 7 box that's dedicated. And we have a dedicated interface card that goes into a SPAN or mirror port, SPAN for Cisco, mirror, Juniper, HP, etc. And that what then happens is that all information going across that device there goes through the SPAN port and is then picked up by the agent that is running on the aforementioned Windows box here. That information is then encapsulated and it is secured with 2048-bit encryption and sent back to the SolarWinds Orion server. And of course, in a distributed environment, what that means is that if you wanted to deploy multiple agents to cover different parts of your site, that can be done very easily. Step two, which allows us to actually choose the nodes that we want to monitor. So these are the actual nodes, such as an SQL server, Exchange server, or Internet Information Services server, that we actually want to get the response times from. Okay. Now, there's a second deployment method that we have here in which we can actually deploy the agents directly onto a server or workstation. So the example that I tend to use here is that if you do have one of these servers deployed, let's say in a DMZ, a demilitarized zone, it's quite often a little bit of a comedy exchange when we go to the security guy and we say, we need to monitor that server that's in the DMZ, and we need SNMP open, we need WMI open, and normally they're laughing at us by then. What this allows us to do is that with the agent being installed directly on the server and sending information back through the aforementioned secure port, through 2048-bit encryption, this means we can start to monitor those servers that are normally a little bit more difficult to get at. And as we showed you earlier, we then choose which application we want to monitor directly from that particular server. So as a summary, we're going directly into the network using a span port, or we can pull that information directly off the server itself. Okay, so the bit that we're all interested in, the demo. What does this product actually look like? So just going to highlight a little URL. I'd recommend everybody just to take a little note of that, oriondemo.solarwinds.com. That's a public website where all of you can actually try exactly what I'm showing you today, where SolarWinds have created some canned data, and it gives you a real view of exactly what the product looks like, because there actually is a SolarWinds Orion server running in the background. So the graph that we're looking at here, and I'm going to start in the middle one here, top 10 application response time. So this is the response time of the application, the time to the first byte. So this is why we use the term quality of experience. It's what it's like for a client, a user, to request information from a particular server. And you'll see that everything is being delivered in a very clear, very easy to view graph. We can change the resolution of the graph if we want to concentrate on a particular point of time, and we can get granular detail. And you'll see that throughout the whole of the SolarWinds Orion products. Now the example I'm going to use is SQL, which is right at the top. So our SQL server is taking, on average, 3.23 seconds to respond, and the peak is actually over 4 seconds. That is going to cause a lot of issues with users. What we can then do is we can then cross-reference that against the TCP handshake. So once we've had the first byte, the initial latency, how long is it taking for the application to respond? And down here we can see, well, once we've made that initial connection with the application, the times are actually quite reasonable. So that then gives us an idea that it may be an application issue. So over here on the left, we're told straight away that the quality of experience nodes exceeding thresholds. We've got 3 SQL servers, so we're all the way down to a node that's actually telling us which nodes are causing a particular problem, and we'll drill into that in a moment. And we can actually see that those nodes are responding in quite a reasonable time, so it's not a network problem. But one of the things that you can do in the SolarWinds Orion suite is as you hover over nodes, you can get these little widgets that appear. And we can see that we've got CPU and memory issues. We've even got application health issues. And this is where we're starting to see the first stages of the app stack, the application stack, where we're monitoring all the layers of the application sandwich here. And we can see that there's a partial failure in the application. We've even got some alerts at the virtualization level as well. So we've got a critical and a notification there. And we can hover over all of these, so we can see there's an application failure complete there. And we can see that there's a critical issue there. So straight away we want to start targeting those particular servers. Now, as I alluded to in the presentation, we have the ability to drill down. So I'm just going to click on this node. So we've gone straight from the quality of experience. We now know it's a node issue. So we've clicked on the node itself. And this will take a second or two to load because there's quite a lot of information on here. There we go. So CPU and memory are currently running hot. Now, the important thing to remember here is that all the SolarWinds Orion products have an alerting engine running in the background. So as wonderful as these graphs and charts are, you don't have to be staring at a board all the time, okay? The system will notify you proactively, okay? And there is our confirmation. There is a problem with our applications, and of course, there is the alert associated with the application itself. Okay, so a very good example of RCA, root cause analysis. Okay, so the next new capability, wireless heat maps. Now, for those of you with a Cisco environment, this is going to be a very exciting capability. And of course, SolarWinds Orion NPM has always had very detailed information when supporting a wireless environment. You can see all the major manufacturers that are supported out of the box. But one of the things we've always been able to do, so if we look at this Cisco wireless access controller here, we can actually see the clients that are attached to that particular access point. But the piece of information that we're interested in here is the RSSI, the signal strength that that particular client is actually receiving. Okay, so one of the things that SolarWinds has always been asked for is, can we put this in a slightly more graphical format here? And in Orion 11.5, we now have wireless heat maps. And for those of you who've had problems in the past with your wireless network, with your mobile phone network provider, and you can log onto the provider's website and get a nice graph around your postcode, you can now do a very similar thing with your particular environment. So in this example here, a nice JPEG representing a first floor of this particular site here, and you can see there's a wireless access point and the test nodes in there, and that's actually able to produce a graph here showing us the signal strength. And for the technically minded amongst you, that's even showing it in decibel meters as well. So we've got a very accurate overview of coverage there. Okay. Of course, as we start to drill down a little bit further, we can actually see the access points, the number of clients currently connected as well. And of course, the links here are live, so if we actually wanted to drill into that particular access point, we can get information straight from there. Okay, so the next session that we're going to go on to is the automated capacity planning. Again, this is something that users have been asking for quite a long time now. So what we're looking at is we're looking here at a Cisco router, and the part we're going to go to here is the CPU capacity forecast chart. So even though the current CPU and memory, because we'll look at that in a moment, is looking very good at the moment, there does seem to be a general trend of increase in the CPU. So what that means that we're probably going to be critical, i.e. over 90% of CPU usage within 6 months. We're going to be at capacity over 100% in 7 months. So this is where the return on investment in this type of monitoring really does come in, because you will have early warning, early notification of any pending failure or exhaustion of compute resources as soon as possible. Again, we're doing exactly the same for memory here as well. And of course, for those of you who've used the SolarWinds Orion suite before, we've always been able to do that with volumes, and of course it's displayed in exactly the same manner when monitoring servers. Okay, so the most important part that we're looking at here, how it's all being brought together in the latest version of 11.5 using AppStack, the application stack. Now, the most important thing to remember here, AppStack is not a product. It's not an add-on. It's not a licensable product. You don't have to buy it. AppStack will be enabled automatically when 2 or more of the products that you see here are running together. So, of course, we can include Network Performance Monitor in there as well. So if you have NPM and SAM, Server and Application Monitor, running on the same server, then the AppStack will be enabled automatically. Okay. So what does it actually look like? So again, from the Orion demo, so you can actually have a look at this and compare it against your own environment. What we've got here, obviously in the SolarWinds demo environment, we have all the products running together. So we have Virtualization Manager, we've got Storage Resource Monitor, Server and Application Monitor, and NPM. And that means that this particular page within SAM is going to be created automatically. And you will also see that the AppStack page will be created at the node level. And I'll show you some examples of that shortly. So at first glance, this all looks fairly complicated. And what this does is this is representing a particular enterprise. Okay, so this is everything in this test enterprise. And of course, it's a red, amber, green status. Anything red is something that we should be concerned about. So what we're going to do is we're going to just concentrate on the applications at the top here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on that first node, and I'm going to put everything in context for that particular application. It's red, and I want to know how that's going to affect the rest of my environment. So I'm going to start at the bottom here. So we've got a storage array, and this I now know without any question that that storage array is supporting that application that I'm looking at. And I can actually see that there's a possible capacity issue that's coming up on that. But generally, that's not a problem at this particular time. We have a storage pool that is green, so that's good. A logical unit number, a LUN associated with it as well. It's an Equalogic RAID 10 device, so again, we've always got that information to hand straight away. As you can see, hopefully you can see we're starting to go up the application stack. These are the volumes that are supporting it, and again, they're all in good condition. As are the data stores, virtual centers, the information that's coming back from VMware. Slight warning on our data center, but I know that that's a host that's in alert because of the storage array associated with it. Okay, so again, we've still got a very good idea about what's going on with this environment. The hosts are good. Memory's running a little bit hot. The server supporting it is good, but it's the application that we're actually concerned with. And even from that little widget there, we know straight away that the application is the issue. It is not the hardware that's a problem. Okay. Memory is a little bit hot though. Okay. And what you will see at the top here is that where I've highlighted that is telling us here that the application is Microsoft Internet Information Services. And of course, as one of the things I will drive you mad with today is that constant ability to be able to drill down that root cause analysis. And that has now taken me straight to the application. And we're going to get some very, very detailed information here about Internet Information Services. Okay, there we go. So, straight to the top here, we have an alert. So that is exactly what the alerting engine would send you if there was a particular problem. So we can see this problem's been going for about 4 days now. Alert me when an application goes down. Okay. And on the left, we can see there's a problem with a particular site. The site has actually been stopped for some reason. Okay. There's a problem with a site called Gallery. Get requests. So there's a user experience monitor there that's throwing up an issue. We can see current connections, cache, any event log issues. And of course, because we're looking at the node here, we can also see CPU and memory usage. So again, this is that synergy of all the SolarWinds products coming together and giving us that single pane of glass to show us all information. Okay. What you also see on the right here is average network traffic. Okay, so this is where a good example of the bandwidth analysis that I was alluding to during the presentation earlier. So we can actually see which websites are creating the most amount of traffic at a particular point in time. Top 20 page requests by average server execution time. Okay, so for you IIS and website gurus, some real granular information there. Okay, go to webinars telling me that there's just waiting for everybody's screen to update. Sorry about the hold up there, everybody. I'm sure this will catch up in a moment. Okay, seems like everyone's caught up now. That's great. So Of course, the most important part we're interested in is the app stack as well. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing an app stack view specific to this particular node, and you will see this as a theme throughout all the SolarWinds Orion products. So if I was to look at that particular data store, there would be an app stack environment showing the nodes, applications, and resources that it is supporting. Okay. So what applications, which SolarWinds Orion applications actually support AppStack? Okay, so the first one that we're going to be interested in is SRM, Storage Resource Monitor. Okay, so as you can see, SRM has its own tab within the SolarWinds Orion suite. For those of you who used these products before, this is the replacement for Storage Manager, or Profiler, as I believe it used to be called before the SolarWinds days. And what we're doing here again is that we're using a single pane of glass to manage disparate manufacturers throughout the whole of the storage enterprise here. So looking at the various manufacturers here, such as Dell, Dot Hill, EMC, etc. Okay, and just looking at this home screen here, storage objects by performance risk. So we can see that we've got a storage resource on this Clarion array that has a really quite severe latency issue. Again, in the same manner that we were showing you with capacity planning, storage objects by capacity risk. So we can actually see which storage resources are possibly going to fail in the future. Array usable capacity summary. Raw disk capacity as well can also be reported upon. And of course on the far right here as well, we can see all active alerts and events specific to this particular storage environment. There we go. Okay. So of course this is all drillable, as I've highlighted already. So if I take this as a particular advantage and I want to have a look at this HP 3PAR device, straight away on the top right there, we can see the array status showing us aggregate IOPS per second, average throughput, usable capacity, network addressable storage capacity, performance summary, any alerts, performance comparisons against other nodes, and of course there is that app stack again showing us the app stack environment pertaining to this particular node. Okay, another product that we have within this particular environment is SolarWinds Virtualization Manager. Now those of you who've been following SolarWinds for some time will know that Virtualization Manager is a standalone virtual appliance and is not a SolarWinds Orion product, and that has changed with 11.5 and of course AppStack. And what we can now do with AppStack is we can take all this marvelous information such as out-of-the-box alerts about the whole of our VMware or Hyper-V environment and cross-reference that information into the app stack so we can see, do we have any bottlenecks in our virtual environment? And the thing I always like to highlight within Virtualization Manager is that the alerts that we're looking at here are out of the box and produced to VMware and Hyper-V best practices. So for example, we can see that there's a data store high I/O delay. We have data stores that are responding slowly to our virtual environment, and we need to know what they are. Do we have phantom snapshot files that could be taking up space? Rather than having to go out and buy more storage, let's do an audit of the environment, and Virtualization Manager gives us the ability to produce those reports. Okay. And again, we can also report on data store latency, CPU ready issues, and of course one of the most popular parts of this particular product is VMware sprawl, actually understanding what is going on in our environment from any virtualization resources that are not necessarily under our control. Are people spinning up VMs that we're not aware of, that are taking resources that we're not aware of? Have we got virtual machines that have been shut down for a long time that are taking a lot of storage from our particular resources? There we go. So idle VMs, any VMs that are oversized, and again, reports can be generated to give you recommendations on recommended sizes for VMs. Okay. So what does that look like within the SolarWinds Orion suite? So within the virtualization tab, of course, all that information is coming into hand. Just waiting for that screen to update there. There we go. So we can see our virtualization assets here, both VMware, there's our clusters, and straight away we can see that there is a particular node that is down, there's a particular guest that is down in our environment here. All active virtualization alerts, and again it's now put into the one single SolarWinds Orion alert engine. Any potential virtualization issues, bad tools, again large snapshots. But let's drill into a particular example. So we can see that there's a Hyper-V server that's running very, very hot here. And we can see at the bottom of that little box that's just appeared there that we have an alert that's being given to us by Virtualization Manager. So again, this is how Virtualization Manager and the SolarWinds Orion suite are starting to run closer and closer together. Okay, again, just waiting for that screen to update for everybody. Okay, there we go. So there again is our friend, the app stack. So straight away we can put into context and we can see that there is an SQL server that is using too much memory within this particular virtual environment here. The host is actually running hot. Okay. But the actual health of the virtual machines themselves is actually very good in their own right. So again, root cause analysis straight away as to what could be causing a problem in this particular virtual environment here. Now, one of the other products that is part of the that sends information into the app stack is WPM, Web Performance Monitor, and some of you may have been asking what is a transaction here. Well, a transaction is literally a web transaction. So I'll take us straight into WPM here. And what Web Performance Monitor actually allows us to do is we can geographically send test information into a website. So if you've got a corporate website such as Amazon, Play.com, anything with a large online corporate presence, particularly something that is handling cash transactions, what would the cost to the company be if that website actually went down? So what we can actually do here is we can actually poll a website remotely. So in this particular example here, we're looking at a Microsoft Office 365 login website, and we can actually see how that website is actually performing here. Again, sorry about the screen update speeds, everybody, just waiting for GoToWebinar to catch up. There we go. So what we have here, and we can see in this example here, the SolarWinds Orion server is being a synthetic user that is connecting into this Microsoft Office 365 website. And what we can see is the current screenshot that has been seen, in inverted commas, by the SolarWinds Orion server. And what we're getting back here is we're actually getting times on how long it is taking for each page to come in. And of course, this website can be polled from anywhere geographically. You just run the Web Performance Monitor player on a Windows 7 or later operating system, and you just would strategically place that in any geographical area that you want, and you can even do comparisons by location. So in the graph that's just about to appear on your screen, there we go, top 10 locations by duration. We can actually see how long it is taking for this website to respond from any geographical location that we want. So we're not just pinging a website and seeing how long it takes to get a response time there, it's how long it is actually taking for the website transaction to take. And on the far right here, again, is our friend, the app stack, where we can actually compare which applications are supporting. So I don't actually have any in this particular example here, but what we could do is we could have an IIS or an Apache server application being monitored. We can then monitor the host that that application is running on and cross-reference that against the transaction steps that we see here. So we've always got a complete view of what's going on. Okay, and then the final product, the big beast itself, Server and Application Monitor. Okay, a standalone product that gives you hardware monitoring of your server environment, HP, Dell, IBM, for example, all the way down to things such as RAID array battery voltages, smart response times and smart health from RAID arrays, multiple CPU temperature intrusion detection, that sort of thing. So very useful for those of you who've got a server farm and are interested in monitoring that. But of course, the thing that we're interested in is the applications, and we've had the look at IIS already. So let's randomly choose a particular server here. So let's choose this Exchange server that seems to be running a little bit hot here. And you can see on the left here, just when, there we go, where GoToWebinar, just catching up, we can see all the individual components that are being monitored by this application template within SAM. So it's not just a case of the application is up or down, it is specifically why it is up or down. And of course, this information is being fed into the app stack as well. Okay, just wait for that screen to update. There we go. So we can see that we're using WMI, Windows Management Instrumentation, to monitor processor queue lengths, SMTP, response times, and user experience monitors. We're monitoring Windows services and processes. And of course, in this example, POP3 is down at this particular point in time. And if we wanted to, we can use the Service Control Manager, which is just like running services.msc remotely, but we're using something like WMI or SNMP. We can look at the Windows event log directly from here, or the Real-Time Process Explorer, which is just like running Task Manager remotely. And we can decide monitoring from those particular tools, and as I've said, we can restart services if we want to directly from there. Okay, so hopefully that's given everybody a little bit of detail in how the SolarWinds Orion suite works, what is new, the new capabilities, and particularly the marvelous toy that is AppStack. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to hand over to Nick quickly just to surmise and let us know of any questions that you may have asked. And thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, thanks very much, Martin. So we've got a couple of questions. And I'll read them out to you, Martin, and if you could hop back into, well, either hop back into SolarWinds or you can answer just on the spot. So the first question, I think this might have been covered towards the end, was how does the web server know which websites are actually being hosted?
Ah, right. Okay, that's a very good question. So this is very much from the IIS monitoring side of things. So the way that the App Insight application template works is it's going in at the top level of Internet Information Services. So we're literally connecting into the IIS server using a local domain password. So what that means is I should be able to show an example. There we go, App Insight for IIS here. So this is an example. Nice to show something that isn't broken. And again, I'm a little bit conscious that there's a little bit of a lag with GoToWebinar at the moment. So there we go. So in this particular example here, because we're going in at the high level, we know about every single site that is running in that particular IIS example. And as I said, all that's needed is a local domain username and password to pull that information back. So it's very, very simple to configure.
Lovely. Okay, I think that answers that one. There's a couple more. So the next one is, does SRM, Storage Resource Monitor, work with Datacore's SAN Symphony?
That is something I will have to find out for you. So that's Datacore's SAN Symphony.
Okay,
so Nick, I'll look that one up and I will feed that information back to you to distribute if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carl will get an answer over to you as soon as possible on that one.
Okay.
So another question I've got, I'll read out a couple more just so we don't run over the mark. How is server warranty information gathered? That's quite an interesting one.
Very, very good question, that one. So all warranty information, should be an example just coming up on your screen there, is of course, for those of you who've used HP, Dell, IBM servers, you can log in and take a particular serial number from the device, log into the manufacturer's website, and they know all about that system. They know how it was configured, and of course the warranty information. And that's all we're doing. So as a node is added into SAM, then that information is automatically brought back from the system, cross-referenced against the aforementioned sites, and displayed here. So again, there's no configuration to do at all there.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, guys. There's I think I'll read out one last question. If there are any more questions right now, then please, obviously, feel free to type them in the question box, or you can raise your hand, and I can unmute you as we're into the last sort of 5 minutes or so. So I'll go for one more question, and then if anybody wants to raise their hand, then that's absolutely fine. So the final question I've got here is, going back to the Orion console, how do we actually monitor the bandwidth in our WAN environment?
Okay, very good question. There's a couple of ways of doing that. So an add-on module to NPM, which is called NTA. Now, SolarWinds call it NetFlow Traffic Analyzer. I tend to call it Network Traffic Analyzer because we're vendor agnostic. We can use NetFlow, SFlow, and JFlow on there. So in this particular example here, we can see that there is a particular Ethernet WAN port that's running exceptionally hot. Now, out of the box, Network Performance Monitor will give you the percentage in the manner that you can see here. And what I can do is I can click on that particular interface and I can say, and again, I'm conscious that the screen is just updating, we can actually see the endpoints and conversations, even the protocols and applications that are taking up that particular level of bandwidth there. So most importantly, those are our endpoints there. So we've actually got YouTube that's taking up quite a lot of traffic here. And we can then cross-reference that against an internal endpoint. So we may want to have a chat with the person who's in charge of that particular endpoint there. And of course, as I said right at the beginning, in the PowerPoint presentation, we could even cross-reference that endpoint information against AD to find out which user is using it. Do you actually have a rogue device on your network that's causing problems? And of course, we can drill this down to protocols and domains as well. And if we're going to get very specific in the WAN environment as well, so again, something that I highlighted right at the beginning during the presentation is we can leverage Cisco's IP SLA technology, IP Service Level Agreement technology. It's proprietary to Cisco, and we can actually start to get timings between nodes in a layer 3 WAN environment. So should have a fairly good example there. So let's have a look. Here we go. Top IP SLA operations VoIP call paths. Okay, so we've got 2 nodes in the example that will appear on your screen shortly. Again, sorry for the lag there. I can see when you're, there we go, screen should be updated now, there we go. So we can see in this example here, we're looking at mean opinion score and packet loss across a WAN environment. So an incredible level of detail in the WAN environment here. Latency and jitter. Okay, so this is a really good example of the SolarWinds Orion suite alerting you to a problem, hopefully before somebody's actually picked the phone up that is using that particular wide area network to carry the voice over IP traffic. And again, we can see straight away that it's the line itself, but the 2 nodes that are providing it are actually in good health. So again, another very good example of root cause analysis. Back to you, Nick. I think that takes us almost to the second, doesn't it?
Yes, I was going to say, just to jump in, Andy's got a question on this front as well, actually, that I'll just read out. I think it's going back to one of your slightly earlier points on the NTA module. Is that via SNMP, or do you need SSH or Telnet? Do you need to SSH or Telnet the Cisco device to actually get the information?
No, very. There's a couple of points there. Excellent question. So what we're doing there to get the bandwidth analysis is we're using the built-in flow technologies that come with your switches, routers, and firewalls. In a Cisco environment, that's typically NetFlow version 5, version 9. In Juniper, is typically S-Flow, J-Flow in HP devices, and that's a configuration that is enabled, and you then send that flow data to the IP address of the SolarWinds Orion server. With regards to the WAN analysis here, so obviously that IP SLA configuration has to be put in place. You'll be pleased to know that the VNQM product that we've got on the screen now will actually telnet into said devices and create the operations for you. So you don't necessarily have to be a CLI guru. Okay.
Fantastic. Well, I think that answers quite a few questions for us, and we've hit right on to 12 o'clock. So, guys, I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. Thank you for your time this morning. If there are any further questions at a later date, then please, obviously, feel free to get in contact with us, and we'll get the answers out to you. And I know there was a question that we're going to have to look up the answer to for Carl. So Carl will get that answer to you as soon as possible. Okay, guys, thank you very much for your time. Martin, thank you very much for the demo as well. And
brilliant. Thank you, everyone. Sorry about the lag on the line.
Excellent. Okay, cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.